Good morning to you, Chris. Firstly, let's start with the news regards isolation and that being possibly abolished in the autumn. Is this a good idea?
It's a very good idea, isn't it? And we only have to ask one question. What is in the best interests of children? Is it in the best interest of children to be in school or at home isolating when they haven't even got the virus? Well, we know what the answer to that is. So, yeah, it's a good thing. But, you know, the government and certainly the education department are very slow learners. It took them about 40 years to learn that children need to learn the sounds of letters in order to learn to read. Now they've learned that, but they are very slow learners. So hopefully they can do this in more than 40 years. Of course, it's crazy that schools are sending children home. They need to be in school. They're falling behind. And so anything the government says about ending this bubble situation is good. We've got to get children back in school, even though there's opposition to that, particularly amongst some of the teacher unions.
Yeah, and what do you think parents generally, what will the consensus be? Do you think that will be positively welcomed mainly?
Parents are pulling their hair out. They've even got less hair than I have. And look, parents want their children back in school. For these children, they have to socialise, they have to mix with their peer group. It's causing serious mental health problems, as the Children's Commissioner has said in this report, which has just come out today. This is a very extreme situation. Our children are about 3 years behind the best education systems in the world. That's before we started the pandemic and before we started the lockdown. So we've got to get over this sort of we're afraid to take any risk. Yes, there are always some risks, but children have a greater risk crossing the road than they do of actually dying from this pandemic. So we've got to get schools open, a bit of common sense and a bit of steel, a bit of backbone at the Department for Education. I've been working at that department on and off for the last 3 or 4 decades. They're no good. Dominic Cummings, who got most things perhaps wrong, or he said a lot of controversial things, did get one thing right. When he worked at the Department for Education for Michael Gove, he said it was like a lunatic asylum in there. Well, he's got that exactly right. It is like a lunatic asylum. They need to get a grip. We need to get children in school. We've got to keep taking them out of school. We've got to look to the future. Children come first. So back to that question, what's in the best interest of children? The best interest of children is to be in school. End of story.
And Chris, what about the other talking point today? The Education Secretary announcing new plans for schools to become mobile-free zones. Good news?
Yeah, they're only about 10 or 15 years behind me this time. When I was head teacher in North London, we did exactly that. We banned mobile phones, but if they had to bring a mobile phone to school, the children could leave them at the school office. Look, mobiles in schools, be like educational cocaine. You know, children are addicted to these. We know from the work of very eminent British scientist Baroness Greenfield that young children in particular are being badly affected by being addicted to their mobile phones. And we can see from looking at images of the brain that there's a physiological matter here. The brains of young children are changing. We don't know what the long-term consequences of that would be. And of course, I'm not a Luddite. I know that it's important to be digitally aware. We have to have computers in schools, but they have to be controlled. So yeah, we've got to wean children off these computers, off these mobiles. They use them for all sorts of nefarious purposes. Bullying, yeah. Also, they film the teachers and they put them on YouTube and so forth. So absolutely, we've got to get these mobile phones under control, and they are a distraction and they lead to bullying. And there's in any classroom in the country, someone is going to be in charge, and it helps if it's the teacher. And if you've got children filming the teacher's clearly not in charge. Over a third of teachers are thinking or leave the profession within their first 5 years, and about 2/3 would like to. Why do they want to leave the profession within 5 years? Because it's a great profession. They do so because of stress. Teachers are under a lot of stress. And I would say, if you're a teacher, you need to be energized by the job. It's a vocation. It's a bit like being a TV morning presenter. You have to get up very early. It's quite a hard job for you too. We know that, as with teaching. But it's a very energizing and fulfilling job. And I'm afraid having mobile phones in the classroom means that the phone's in charge, not the teacher. We've got to do something about this. We've got to support our teachers, look after them. And one way we can do this is to say, look, the teacher is going to be in charge. We're going to support them. And we've got to back up our teaching force, get rid of the mobile phones, but just use technology as we need it.
Yeah, Chris, just finally and quickly, actually, I mean, I agree with you. Both my children at phone-free schools. But there will be parents, and I do have empathy for those parents that, you know, the children, especially if they're younger, are travelling to and from school, especially in the winter or when it's darker, etc. And they might see that as unsafe, the parents, and they would like a phone to be with them. Is it a case of, well, I'm sorry, no, or do they hand them in? How would you have dealt with that situation from parents who...
It's a lot safer not to carry the phone, because when they carry the phone, they get mugged. Certainly working in London, it's quite normal for the children to get mugged for the phone. So if you want to put the children's safety first, don't carry the phone, because the phone is a green light for mugging. And anyway, look, if there are extreme circumstances and the child has to take the phone to school, make sure it's a cheap one for as it can be and leave it at the school office. Use a bit of common sense. My goodness, we need a bit of common sense in education. And certainly in my school, well, I had 7 applicants for each place, and children and parents supported what I did. And when the head teachers are being charged, make sensible decisions and stop forever asking people what do they think. There's always going to be different opinions. Well, my opinion is the head teacher's in charge. What the head teacher says goes. And I would say as a head teacher, forget the mobile phones. Don't bring them to school at all, unless there's an emergency or really important situation, and then leave them at the office. So power to the head teachers, power to the teaching profession, not to the phones.